You're listening to Tech Nest, the Proptech podcast. In each episode, you'll hear from Proptech founders, investors, and industry veterans on how they're using tech to change the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. Discover market opportunities, interesting data, growth tactics, and trends driving the industry forward. This isn't just another podcast about making money in real estate. This is about how we live. And now your host, Nate Smoyer.
All right, we're talking leasing today. I have two guests, one company. Don't get to have multiple people from the same company very often. Jason Shenitzer, he's the CEO, and Max Griffin, Director of Sales. On the show today, talk about a company called Skylight. GetSkylight.com. Skylight connects multifamily units to the top leasing talent within your city. This allows for internal leasing teams to be more competitive and efficient, and it increases the amount of access potential for renters by, expanding the capacity for tours and leasing power when you're trying to fill up units. One of the things that I wasn't familiar with this problem. This is a new problem to me before the show. But, you can build an internal team, or you can go hire management companies that have a leasing, or you can go and hire all the agents directly yourself. But there's still some challenges baked in there. The retention issues of having an internal team, the limitations of your internal team. They still want holidays and weekends. If you hire a certain brokerage or two, then you're kind of stuck with their talent and even their talent's turnover rate, or you can kind of unlock it to the best talent within the city, regardless of brokerage. And that's really what Skylight's been doing. They're streamlining the ability to do that, building tech to support that, integrations to existing systems that building owners and their customers are using. It makes a lot of sense. They're currently only in the Los Angeles area with expansion plans across the country. We're going to get into all those details and more. Let's hear what they have to say. Hey, Jason, Max, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nate. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to have you guys on. It's rare I get two employees or members of a founding team on at once, and so this is always fun for me. There's been a few instances where that's happened in the past, and a few that's also fallen through. Max, you helped set this up.
Yes,
I believe. Yeah, and so thanks for doing that. And then Max leads sales for Skylight, and Jason, you're the CEO. And I pulled from, I'm just going to pull the quote from the site here, right? Skylight is working to connect multifamily units to cities' top leasing talents. So I'm going to start with that right there. Break that down for me, Jason, in simple terms. What does that really mean for the multifamily industry as far as what Skylight's building?
Sure. First up, thanks for having us. Max, thanks for joining. We're a platform that connects multifamily to a network of residential agents within currently the city of Los Angeles, and a couple different ways to utilize those agents in order to lease your multifamily. To simply put it simply, really tap into those agents and go from there. But there's a lot more to it.
Now, I know that this is one of the other promises here of the product is that this helps strengthen the internal leasing team, making them more competitive and efficient. Can you talk me through a little bit about how Skylight helps teams become more competitive and efficient?
Yeah, sure. So I think if we back it up and talk about just the agents in general and how you can utilize those agents, this all came about from kind of my background where we were leasing multifamily, our own portfolios with residential agents. And the first thing we did there was we started building out tools for these agents to be more efficient and to be excited about actually leasing apartments. We found they were the best people to do so, and best salespeople, etc. And building out those tools, we very quickly found them to be much more efficient. And so what I mean by more efficient is if they have the up-to-date inventory, if they have that within the palm of their hand within an app, if they have all the pertinent details for a building such as concessions, pet policy, etc., they can really focus on what they do best, which is going to the building, that face-to-face interaction, being an advocate for your building, and selling the neighborhood and what it's like to live in the community. So as we started to build out Skylight in its current iteration, we found that property management companies, either vertically integrated or not, could really utilize this leasing automation for their internal team as well. And it focuses on a few different things. Starts with being able to, from any ILS, having a prospect book a tour instantly with with your agent team. So therefore, and we're in the world of centralizations, CRMs, etc. And we're by no means that CRM, but we think it's critical to catch that consumer, in this case the renter, as quickly as possible, and allowing them to book that tour with, let's say it's your an on-site person that handles 4 or 5 buildings. In the past, that person had to actually use that CRM, go call, handle the follow-ups, etc., and then book those tours based off of their availability and based off the renter's availability. And oftentimes there was a gap there because these property managers are doing many different things. So first and foremost, the leasing automation allows your in-house team to focus on selling, and booking of tours is a big part of that, as well as obviously the big sell of our product is that you take that internal team of maybe 2 or 3 agents and you turn that into 15 agents. And so that additional coverage allows the renter to view the apartment when they are available, maybe the middle of the day when they have a break, maybe after hours. And then it makes your team really as efficient as possible.
Now, are those other agents that you're recruiting to join the Skylight platform, they're getting the leads on getting the, to do a showing of a luxury unit in LA. Are they getting paid by the tour? Is it when a lead closes? Can you walk through how that all works with those agents?
Yeah, it's all success-based, and success at Skylight is actually closing the lease. So at point of move-in, they're being paid a commission. So it's similar to how they would in the, at their current brokerage. And if they're going to, let's just say, lease a home, when that actually closes, they then are paid their commission. So it's all success-based and it's all commission-based. So they are incentively aligned to go ahead and try to minimize the number of tours they have to do, as well as much more incentivized than your standard on-site that is maybe paid to $300. These people are really excited about closing that and being a real advocate in selling.
Got it. And so let me ask you this here. Obviously, you've got to get agents interested in what Skylight's doing, but also you have to have building owners interested in what you're doing. Which is the tougher one to get on board first, and how have you been approaching that problem that anyone who's building any sort of product with network effects ultimately faces?
Yeah, great question. It's a common one. And I would say it ebbs and flows between which one we're kind of, at different times. I think one can be more challenging than the other, and I think there's a number of factors there. But I would say that very much having a property management company understand how implementing Skylight's technology can really enhance their leasing and their actual management and their absorption, etc., is the longer sale. Bringing on that inventory of buildings is the education process that we have to really focus on. I'm excited to say on the agent side, pretty extensive waiting list currently of and growing
Wow.
of a really high caliber agent. So we're at about, give or take, 100 agents, and we're bringing out about 30 to 30 a month on average now the past 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
And that's growing really quickly. And here in LA is, I think the exciting part about that is a number of the agents come from teams that are on enough these TV shows, et cetera. And you say, well, holy shit, why would you ever, why would these people be willing to rent apartments? But I think we all understand the headwinds that residential agents currently have. And then the part of it that they're really excited to jump into this is that there are a number of renters right now that are renters by choice and very much influenced by, let's just say, interest rates. So these clients that have somebody buying a $2, $3, $4 million home here in LA are choosing to rent instead. And they're going to that same Compass agent, that same agent from the agency. And they're saying, hey, Max, we're going to pause looking at buying something, but where do you think we should live for the next year or two? Santa Monica, West Hollywood. And in the past, an agent would just kind of like point them, I don't know, Santa Monica's a great neighborhood. Here you go. Go on Zillow. Well, the idea that they can now simply, efficiently, and really be excited about sharing inventory through Skylight is something that agents are very much intrigued by and have been very successful at. So the agent side of things is super exciting. On the building side of things, they now understand, and they're starting to very much of it's inbound as well. Not enough of it, right? There's always some outbound motion. But on the building side, they understand that they need a more sophisticated leasing process. And that starts with the person that is actually meeting that prospect and representing the building. So the more we can educate them that this is the caliber of agent you get with Skylight, the quicker they are adopting our platform as a portion of their leasing strategy.
Now, if building owners wanted to go out and recruit their own agents, I mean, they can do that today. They could call up a brokerage, and I don't know what that process looks like. So maybe we start there. Like, what would the traditional or I don't know if it's the antithesis, but what would that look like versus just calling up Skylight and say, hey, look, I got this building. We got these great units. I just need people to find renters to fill up my units.
Yeah, so I can kind of give our story of just kind of our portfolio and how we used to do it, which I think will give a good explanation of how they currently do it, and then how you do it with Skylight. So we have property management companies that we use for our portfolio that we really like. They're good managers, but we found that their leasing team was doing multiple things, every day. So that can be anything from, there are water leaks to tenant complaints, et cetera, as well as filling in those gaps with leasing apartments. And we always knew that, and from my partners in that end of the business or previous business in the syndication, they were from New York. And they said, hey, in New York, we use residential agents. They're the best people to sell. If we need to really maximize our rents and the absorption timeline, I think we need to implement some agents here in LA. And so what we did is we called up, this particular case was a couple buildings in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. And we called up the Keller Williams office, we called up the Compass office, and we found one really excited agent who had done some leasing. So when we implemented the strategy by utilizing, in this case, his name was Austin, and put him into the buildings to handle the leasing, we really quickly realized he had to handle apartments.com, Zillow, lead management, booking tours, etc. And then we found that we were nonstop texting and calling him, asking how it's going, because every day that it's vacant, we're losing money. And so
Right.
we were pressuring the hell out of him to really focus on our portfolio when he had multiple apartments to rent, as well as he hadn't gotten to the leads from yesterday until maybe 24, 48 hours later when he could sit down on his computer and he wasn't running around town. So one of the first things we did was built out a dashboard and we'll get into that a bit, to really mend that relationship and understand what's going on in real time for us. But that is the way that you really would try to enhance your leasing. It would be either that you would go to your management company and say, like, we need someone better. We need someone new on our building, or we need more people. And in doing so, it puts the pressure for them to go staff up, which they're not experts at leasing. They're experts at just overall general management. Leasing's very demanding, as I'm sure you know. Now, with Skylight, we built those tools. So in the new version of leasing with residential agents, we're that platform that connects the building to the agents and then provides those tools for him to do it really efficiently. So in the past, when you just call your local, your local brokerage, or you ask a friend, hey, who's a good leasing agent? You get a good leasing agent without the tools. And now with Skylight, you can very simply add a building, a portfolio to the platform. You don't have one agent like Austin, you have multiple agents. And then in doing so, I can track what's going on in real time with them, so I don't have to keep just calling them, pestering them when they're out there in the field selling. And then that agent has the app, the integrations with AppFolio or Yardi, whatever it might be on that specific building, and they can focus on what they're best at, which is selling. So coming full circle, in the past, you call up a couple brokerages, or your management company handles it without those tools for the most part. And then with Skylight, we provide you with that staffing, as well as the most important part of it, beyond a good person opening that door, or excited person to open that door, is providing them the tools to do it efficiently, which has you mentioned three-sided marketplace here. We're not focused as much on driving the demand. I'll get into that in a bit because there are some exciting things. But in the demographics that we're all dealing with in terms of renters right now, they're used to instant gratification. So that means if they're looking on Zillow, apartments.com, they want to book a tour.
Yep.
They want it now, and they want to see it when they are available to see it. So that's the part of it that we're really focused on providing those agents with the tools.
Do you remember those really crummy J.G. Wentworth commercials?
No, give it Jumax.
It's my money, and I want it now.
Yeah, I know this one's for sure. I could get that jingle out sometimes in my house sometimes too.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong
now, right?
though. It's common, that's what people expect. And honestly, though, the expectation has been set there by a lot of more prominent tool sets, like learn now, chat now, get information now. So like the expectation is that that extends all the way through to the service provider on the ground, which is obviously logistically very difficult to provide that. Max, I'm curious from your perspective, like what have been some of the biggest challenges your customers, like when they're talking to you, like what are they saying, like we need help with this right now? Just given the last few years especially, I think there's been a lot of shifts in how we look at real estate, how tech plays a role in that, even leasing and tours. What was some of the direct feedback you're hearing from customers?
Yeah, I think at least in our the conversations I have, the pain point that comes up the most urgent need, like you mentioned the word urgent, is extra coverage. I think the first dozen or so buildings we brought on this year, I'd say most of it was leverage from someone saying, hey, look, I'm in this lease up period and we have to fill some really high-end units or a new building. We got to hit these numbers in this certain amount of time period. Difficulty being we don't really feel confident that we have everything checked off the list. Usually it comes down to leasing talent. So even some different teams too, they might have one agent for every certain amount of units, typically 1,000 or a couple thousand units. Easy spot was, hey, look, you guys don't have leasing in the afternoons or on the weekends. And ultimately that was hurting their ability to fill those units up. Like, some did a great job. They're going to have high occupancy rates anyways. Some were not. So typically it was, hey, look, we have less than ideal occupancy, or we're having trouble converting leads to tours. And a lot of that came down to, again, I think leasing talent. Another great one too, a company that we were working with. I won't mention names during the podcast, but they had a really great amount of leads coming in, not that many tours on the books. And their tour to actually signing leases was pretty good. I think they were at 30-something% conversion. A ton of leads coming in, not many being booked into tours. Pulling the curtains behind it, one was the efficiency. So, hey, look, your internal team is probably overwhelmed with handling building requests. They had just changed ownership of the property as well.
Okay.
Same leasing agents were stuck there. But what it came down to is those agents internally were a little overwhelmed, did a good job as much as they could. But in order to get those leads to tours, they need some internal tools for them, like free up their time, give them the ability to respond faster, make sure the leads are contacted faster, and just push the tour numbers higher. And then part of that too is making sure that they get more tours, is opening up availability. So letting the Skylight agents come in on the weekends after 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, something like that. I would say that's like where the urgent needs is the most common pain point, whether that's during lease up or just during a phase where they're slumping a little bit. Is that a fair guess there, Jason, you think too?
Yeah, I would say, simply put, is a higher caliber of leasing agent is at the core of everything we do. And as most, let's just say, institutional owners find out, is that if you find a really great on-site leasing person, the average churn there is between 8 and 13 months. And
oh, wow.
And they're churning often, and so you're not only going to find that next leasing star, per se, but you're also teaching them, have to train them completely on your entire tech stack. So that combination takes a significant amount of your time, your energy, focused on finding that quality leasing person, keeping them around, and training them on the technology. So with Skylight, you can add 1,000 units to the platform, and within a week, your units are live. From there, you're assigned multiple agents to each property, depending upon the number of vacancies, and they're darn talented for the most part. They are motivated salespeople that are really looking to earn extra income so that they can follow their dream of being a long-term residential agent, which we all know is pretty difficult. So the key behind it is that finding quality leasing talent can be difficult. And because of that, we provide that in a turnkey platform, which connects you to that talent day one. So everybody's looking for that leasing all-star, and it's tough, and it's tough to keep them around. I think you can go through any large PMC and find a few, and it's awesome when you find them, but they're looking to move up as well. So you're always refilling that that bucket of talent, let's say. And we're excited where things are headed with that as well. When you come to virtual tours or self-touring, very much envision a time when there isn't that on-site leasing office. We've all seen the large CRMs talk about centralized leasing, et cetera, and I think there's definitely that's growing and not going anywhere. But I think that the majority of higher-end luxury apartments will always want some type of face-to-face sale, at least that option. So envision a world where you pick as a renter, I want a self-tour. And then the other person says, you know what, I want to choose a tour with a in-person tour. with an agent. And for that person that wants to show them the building or the neighborhood, maybe I'm new to town, etc., I want to talk to somebody.
Yep.
We envision that option of you book that tour and an agent from the Skylight network shows up to conduct that. So it's all about that talent and then that coverage.
Yeah, Jason, I think that the talent is when you see it actually in action, or you see some of our customers get really excited by that. It makes more sense too. At first, it's like, okay, sure, we want like a talented agent. Of course, why would we not want talent? But like one of our clients we brought on, kind of similar story that I mentioned before. They had a leasing agent who's handling so many units. A lot like any sales program, though, you kind of rank your reps. You have some that deal with the small, medium-sized businesses. Then you move up, or enterprise. You have someone doing really sophisticated deals. And I think that with this good customer in particular, they were looking at this and realizing, hey, look, we're not filling up our luxury units or these units in particular for whatever reason. That customer base that was coming into that building and into these luxury units just wasn't really being sold to in the proper way. Where the smaller units, the smaller deal size, when you compare it strictly to sales, are moving just fine. Like that agent they had internally was very comfortable closing their smaller units and their less luxury units. So they came to Skylight and said, you know what, we'll give it a shot on some of these. They've been sitting stagnant for a while. But ultimately that was the fit. And then they really saw it saying, wow, we want to have a high quality agent, just like a sophisticated enterprise rep for big enterprise deals. And they kind of saw the same comparison, and ultimately that made a lot of sense to them. And the results were great too. When you think about it, you're walking into some of these units, some of them are really expensive. Where we jump into $8,000-11,000 or a month or more. It takes a special person to go in there and close a deal. At least I think. And also too, when we start looking at these agents who are representing these buildings and having their own audience and their own book of business, when you can bring somebody who might be looking at a house in Los Angeles or in Phoenix or different areas we're moving to, if you can take someone who has that kind of sophisticated taste, who already trusts you, and then you can move them into something else that you as an agent's selling. In this case, it's a luxury unit from a different property management company. I think that's a really good sales flow for higher end units, and any unit really in particular. But that's where we've had a lot of traction so far when it comes to a sophisticated agent.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the trends of the industry. I mean, I follow, actually, I'll plug it right now. I've got a really great Twitter list called Real Estate Data. If you're not following it, you should jump on that. I'm not even asking you to follow me. Don't follow me. I tell people
Nate,
follow my list. But so like I keep up on some of the reports that are coming out, and it seems like there's been a little bit of a bump of vacancy rates. We've seen vacancies actually going up a little bit. The number of incentives have started picking up in areas. A buddy of mine has been shopping for a new apartment. He's in New York City, and he's been sending me all these ridiculous listings he's looking at, but also like some of the incentive packages that come with it. I'm curious though, you guys are coming in and say, we have this talent, we have this pool of agents. Do building owners respond to like, okay, let's give that a shot first. Let's try a new way of like service professionals, or are they saying like, okay, we'll do the service professionals and the incentive packages? Like, how does this change the overall approach of the building owner when they're presented with the solution that Skylight's offering?
I'll start here. And I would say that, New York and Los Angeles, we deal with rent control. So I think that these incentives are used for a number of different reasons, all well thought out, but ultimately that gross rent is critical. So in LA, if you can give an extra free month of rent and keep your gross rent higher, ultimately that's where you're going to be increasing off of when you have in the city of LA your 3% increases. Well, you got to start as high as possible because that person can stay for 10, 15, 20 years, let's say, which is fine. So here in LA, there are the smaller owners are very much focused on, and when I say small, I'll say a portfolio of like 500 or less units here in LA. And that can be made up of 10 or so buildings, some 4 units in Venice Beach, or it could be 25 units up in, Hollywood. And those owners are very much focused on long-term holds, keep making sure that their gross rents are in line with at least with market. And because of that, incentives are important. There's times when we get brought on and they say, hey, if we're going to pay 6%, and you guys you're better at, your team is or your network of agents are better salespeople. Can I hit this $3,000 one bed rent without having to give that 1 month free? Let's try it. And so there are times when they'll remove those, etc. That being said, on the larger inventory within certain neighborhoods, and I think you could probably speak to this, as well as anybody in regards to trends, within LA, you can only build up in certain pockets. So, for example, Hollywood. It's become incredibly competitive because of both deliveries, let's say 12 to 16 months ago, and then deliveries now. And so the deliveries 12 to 16 months ago, we've seen very much different waves of renters over the past 3 years. Very unorthodox how they've come in, when they come in, and then big increases, but not very steady. And then because taking you back to like that 12 to 16 months, right now you're hitting renewals from those buildings. So if you're delivering on a new 100-unit building in Hollywood, you need absorption. You need absorption quickly, and that is all also tied to your debt. So if you're sitting here saying that I need to refinance this, I have to be at a certain amount of occupancy and a certain number gross rent in a certain period of time, well, hell, you got to figure out any way to get there. What's most important is you're getting as many people in there to pay that rent as you can as quickly as possible, and they're all using us and keeping those concessions because it's all about filling it quicker, and that's what we bring to the table there. They're also running into those renewals where once you're through that cycle and you've refinanced or have stabilized a building, now you're really focused on keeping your current tenants in place. I think we see a trend across the country where if it's harder to find renters or becoming that, headed in that direction, well, let's keep who's in my building. And I'm offering them incentives to stay. So some of the incentives are pretty out of whack in that particular pocket. Let's just stick to Hollywood, because you have your renewals offering significant incentives to keep that place full, and that's what the pressure of that's the pressure that the management has on them, is keeping it full. And then you have the new inventory that needs to hit both the rents and the absorption. So you have this battle of incentives where in order to be competitive, the renter is looking at multiple places. Oftentimes you have to offer those incentives, and you have to tap into our platform in order to really increase that demand. And we haven't gotten there yet, but differentiating yourself on the current ILSs is difficult. It's a pay to play and be at the top of the list, and there is no differentiation. We're finding with Skylight that when renters find us through agents, that they see it as being a curated, more premium, let's call ILS. And that's all driven by the agents. So took that question and ran with it, but incentives vary very much with particular pockets of LA, etc. But that's why we're excited about other markets. I think we've all read about Phoenix and Austin and their record number of deliveries. The rents are holding. I mean, they're down, right, but not catastrophically. They're holding.
In some pockets, they're down, but they're down from the highs. They're down from peaks, and in many cases, it's the rent growth that has slowed. It's not that it's just going down. I think this is where I have, like, every time I see someone share an article from Inc. and Fortune, I immediately roll my eyes and like, good night. I mean, because it's just, look, CoreLogic's a legitimate data company, but the the extrapolation of what they're putting out as data, and then trying to convince everyone that we're going to see 20 and 40% market valuation drops. A year ago, obviously it's like the doomers know how to get clicks. That's what we've figured out at this point.
In my small little group that we run in with through multifamily is what we for many years now. I would think we've all been told that doom and gloom is coming and there'll be incredible deals out there. I think we all. It was
last week. The YouTuber with his Airbnb report went viral.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to substantiate the data is like incongruent with any other source, including Airbnb's. It's like, I'm pretty sure this isn't like, yes, has there been declines? Yes, but that's like totally separate reasons other than crashing. It's not crashing.
No, there's COVID outlier. There's effects from COVID across the board that I think very much
maturity of the space. It's just purely maturity of the space. Some people are.
That's an interesting comment as well. So when we started out, or when I started out in multifamily. In LA, you had a number of people coming from New York that were syndicating deals and doing the standard what you see across the country now, which is your new floors, your new cabinets, renovating and pushing rents in supply-constrained locations within LA.
Sure.
That became more mature over time, and there was less opportunity. A lot of it had to do with rent control and rent restrictions, etc. But when you look at markets like, for example, Phoenix, and you see 200-unit garden-style apartments that, first off, the leverage and the interest rates were let's just say around 3%. You're coming in there, and each building was rinse and repeat in terms of renovations, pushing those rents, and then refinancing and exchanging, or selling and exchanging, or refinancing and doing another deal. Where that becomes interesting is that when you have a huge increase in supply in like Phoenix, for example, it's going to be interesting where those rents flush out. Because if you have a garden-style apartment with a beautiful interior and in-unit laundry, and then you have a Class A property of 500 units that just needs to fill up, and as those start to compress, you're not going to be able. I imagine it's not about filling your unit; it's very much about keeping those units or keeping the rents in line with where you need to be based off of your initial thesis when purchasing the property. So I think there's a number of things that will wiggle out, but internally we talk about, I think there are significantly more buyers on the sideline if they were in a distressed situation where you're going to sell that at still very much a premium compared to where these articles and doom and glooms articles are. There's too many people that see multifamily and the security of housing, et cetera, as at the very least someone's going to, I think, make it out of those pretty unharmed, but maybe didn't make that return that they hope for, and then that new guy in a handful of years is going to have that renovated building to hold on to. So it's definitely an interesting time, but new inventory plays into all of this.
Now, I want to ask you one question, a little bit more philosophical, and then we're going to get to the final 2 seconds here of the show. It's very obvious you guys have leaned into the idea that the service professional, the agent, is still very much central to the transaction here when it comes to leasing. In the last few years, though, we've seen this theme in real estate. It's old, it's antiquated. I'm guilty of, I have in the past, I've said it, I've downplayed the role of buyer's agents and leasing agents. I've done it. And I think I've switched teams here. I'm a little bit more aligned to you guys, where I still see the service professional as actually really integral to the transaction in many ways. Some I maybe hadn't considered before. And so I'm just curious as to when you were thinking about starting a business, you saw all the problems, why not just go hey, let's automate the agent out of us. Let's just go self-touring. Let's just go fill in your own lease agreement versus, hey, let's bring in the agent. Let's find the best in talent and let's systemize that to deliver, that personalized service. Why go that route?
Yeah, well, it was back to your question about what the customers were asking for. And when it came to B to A+ inventory in Los Angeles, we saw the opportunity organically from what we were building for agents, and that agents were excited about leasing. And I think that was the change in roles amongst residential agents. Now, when we started to build out what currently is Skylight, it was during COVID. It was as a side project, there's never going to be more vacancies in Los Angeles. And these were all customers of mine that I had sold a number of, properties to over time or knew through that business. And they said, hey, we need help here. And what we realized very quickly is their management could not handle the demands that these owners were placing on them regarding leasing. So you have a couple options then. We immediately ordered a handful of lockboxes to pair with the app and said, oh, hey, lockbox tours, we're all in on this. And we know the players in the market, et cetera, and we said, hey, we can think about the costs there and keeping those costs low, et cetera. And when we started to meet with larger and larger customers, they immediately pushed back and said, hey, does a human open the door? Like, do you have somebody that opens the door? They didn't believe us because they were being hit with, hey, you got a lockbox, self-touring, etc. And so we said, yeah, absolutely. And not only is it just someone to open a door, they're really a motivated salesperson that knows the neighborhood, knows the nearest coffee shop, and they're there and they're incentivized to actually close that lease. And they would hire us as a leasing brokerage before we built all our technology in an instant over just using a lockbox company. So the light bulb went off to us, and we knew we did not want to build a very large leasing brokerage. We have a number of close relationships that have done so in New York, and we knew that just kind of where I was at in my life, so relatively young, realized I did not want 100 or 200 agents in all hanging their license with me and the demands that follow that.
And the liability.
Yeah, no question about it. And also the scalability, right? How quickly can we service all of these apartments? And so we realized, hey, these real estate and Proptech it takes a while for the customer to adopt software.
Yes. Yeah.
We all know that. And it just takes a significant amount of education, time, hand-holding, and willingness to implement that. So the halfway point there was that if we implement all the software, you get all of that. But with that quality agent, they were really excited, and it was very quickly, we'll use you. So at the heart of it, where things are headed, I think I brought this up earlier. I think the on-site agent role is changing. And I think that forget the generalist that is handling renewals, community events, or community functions, and also doing leasing. And then that person becomes demotivated by staying there till 9 at night, filling out their leasing information, etc., while they have to handle that renewals, while they have to handle the community events, etc. And it's very much going into specialization. So I think there is a world that will evolve here that has self-touring is a part of it. If you want to come see a place and all of the entrance systems, etc., are all uniform, and you can do so, which I think is also a reason we decided to use agents. Once that gets there, and you can simply access through Latch, Butterfly, etc., that will be a part of everybody's leasing strategy. But I think there is no doubt in my mind that in order to lease, and this goes back to the maturity of the market, rents are up across the country. A $2,000, $3,000 unit, a $60,000 commitment for a year, whatever it might be, depending upon $30,000 to $60,000, is a luxury product, and it's expensive. And not everybody is comfortable going to view that on your own, and the conversion from tour to lease, we have found to be significantly higher with that person there that can answer some of those questions, etc. So I like to think that we're combining, giving multifamily operators the ability to satisfy both of those, where I absolutely believe in all the technology, and I absolutely believe that a human interaction and face-to-face sale will never go away. So I think it's a balancing act of both, and I think across the country, if you want to engage a human to conduct that tour, that it should be through Skylight's platform. And who's better than residential agents? That whole world has changed as well, from the role of a team to the role of an agent, and then their willingness to actually go rent apartments goes back to maturity in the market as well because of those rents. And now if they can make $500 to $1,000 and do 5 or 10 of those in between their sales each month, they're making an extra $30,000 to $100,000. And we all know that's really impactful just to keep going as a residential agent. So as long as they're willing to do it and we can make it really easy on them, I think it's a resource that owners and operators will always want to tap into in some fashion. So,
I appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to shift here to the final 2 segments of the show. First one here being called For the Future. For the Future is when I get to ask each guest who comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. You guys ready to play?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1, what does Skylight look like 1 year from now?
Oh, I'll jump in.
Yeah, you get that one, Jason.
Skylight 1 year from now. We believe we'll be in 3 or 4 markets. In each market, we'll have 500 or so agents at least. And I think that residential agents across those MSAs will be very much an integral part of the leasing world within that city, which also will impact significantly how renters find and search for apartments. The more agents that are in each market, more likely that you're going to be introduced to one of those along the way through whatever technology we're passing out. And it'll be a really exciting time in each one of those markets. So very much have the vision. If you hop off the plane in Austin, Texas, and you pass a bigger building and you see somebody standing out front, that there's a good chance they're meeting a prospective renter, and that is a Skylight network agent that is conducting that tour. So all done through.
Very cool.
I think, as you know, integrations, etc., take some time. We're almost there. So the closer we get to that, the closer to streamlining that process and making it really exciting for these agents to run around. So in a year, I think you'll have, we'll be in multiple cities, and I think residential agents will be continue to be really excited about the opportunity.
Very cool. All right, number 2 here. What will be the most impactful technology to help leasing agents in the next several years?
Really good one. let me give it some thought. So the most impactful technology.
I'm going to throw out a few softballs here to kind of roll this, right?
Please.
I mean, obviously, we don't work in the books anymore. We have IDX feeds. That, as super powerful. Digital signatures. Instant applications.
You want me to just go for one of these, the sign of the times,
one of these,
whatever, just go for it?
What's the next one? Yeah, let's hear it.
I very much think that AI will be very impactful for leasing agents. We're building into the product some really cool features that simplify, not for the renter, but simplify for the agents. And I'll give you an example of that. When I'm walking into a building and I'm an agent, and let's say I haven't been to the building, and through my wayfinding, etc., it provides me with 2 or 3 different units to show Nate, because he's looking to move to Santa Monica. He wants a light and bright unit, so I know which ones to tour, because he needs some sun. And you won't be moving him to Santa Monica, but or at least I would imagine not. Not remote enough. But anyways, so if you're looking to move and Jason, the agent, is meeting you there, I will be able to ask and interact with AI, which will then tell me specific units to show you when I'm there, as well as all of the pet policies, all of the pertinent details about the building, and then questions that you might have. So maybe Nate has 2 snakes that he's bringing. And so instead of me having to go through the old antiquated process of asking the management company, can he, A, do you accept snakes? And
Yep.
B, can you bring 2 of them? And what's the cost? While I'm touring you, I can ask those questions through AI, pulls those details, and then allows me to understand, give you those policies, etc. So it's a little cheesy for the times, but AI is going to significantly help, I believe, leasing agents across the board.
I don't disagree with you. I am going to tell you one thing. If I was filling out the lead form and I said, Jason, I need more sun. I need to get some more sun in my life. You might actually suggest South Dakota, and here's why. As back in 1909, South Dakota was once known as, formally, the Sunshine State.
Wow.
I had no idea.
There you go. There's today's Did You Know? The more you know.
How many days a year of sun?
A lot. Enough to where we actually had a ton of rain last month. It rained 21 days in June this year, which is that's like the sky is literally falling. It also does hail a little bit here. Yeah. I don't know. It's got to be like close to 300 days a year.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I assume similar to Colorado. So
probably, yeah.
I spent a good time.
Not as expensive. Don't come here. It's terrible. You'd hate it. All right, number 3.
What's one? Santa Monica wouldn't be the spot for you. It's like it wasn't much about the sun. It's probably cloudier with the
there you go.
The May gray.
All right, number 3 here. What's one industry trend you think will continue, but you wish would go away?
Max, why don't you jump into that?
Man,
while I think about it.
You got another softball for me here, Nate? I'm trying to
hold no punches. These are... Follow your gut.
This is our team was made up. Jason's background came from owning multifamily and brokering multifamily. I started working in tech about a handful so years ago, focused in Proptech for majority of that. I noticed, talking specifically about Proptech, I think there'll be more consolidations. The reason I got excited to join Skylight was that I was working at a different company before, really good, but it was just really tough to sell property management companies because there's a lot of thin offerings. Do you want the best tool that can, I won't ever bash, but that can do this one unique thing really specifically and it might move the needle.
Yep.
And it's about, if you look at any industry, but especially in PropTech, there's a ton of really specific thin offerings that may or may not move the needle. Ultimately, the company I was working at before, we weren't big enough to get acquired, but that was kind of the move was, hey, look, at some point, we're so specific in this, the only option we really have is be bought and then rolled into something bigger. I think that trend will continue happening. I think from a buyer experience, if I'm a property manager, or running the leasing for the Texas and Arizona and California, I want the buying process to be easier. At least I think the people that I got to speak with really openly in property management say, we get hit with a lot of offers. So I think giving a better buyer experience and also just giving a really thick offering within PropTech that says, hey, look, we can get you from plugging into your property management software all the way to and get you to a lease signed, or just a bulkier offering as opposed to interact this way, or convert your emails faster, or convert this piece faster. Just pushing that all into one big thick offering, I think, is where a lot of this is in the head. At least when I listened to a really great pod, or I guess it was an interview with one of the professors at USC. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. We brought on a couple different PropTech leaders. It's really good. Probably about 6 years old now, maybe. Okay. And it became really obvious just listening to the different founders. They had really good ideas, but it just seemed really early. Each one had a really specific, cool idea, but it was so small and maybe really not all that powerful. Granted, they're early, so they haven't all been tested and validated within the market. But I think going forward, we're going to see, I would like to see, I would not be against it as a sales rep too, selling within like a big juicy offering where it's like, okay, look, we got a handful of maybe not legacy Proptech companies anymore, but new Proptech companies that have joined forces, and you got 2 or 3 that are best in class at taking you from plugging into your property management software to giving you a lease signed. So right now, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, man, picking here to work at Skylight was easy because that's kind of how Jason sold me. Is, hey, look, like I reached out to Jason actually saying, look, man, we're having a really tough time getting into this market. How are you guys doing it? And ultimately for us, it just came down to having too thin of an offering that didn't really stand on enough at my previous role. So anyways, long answer. Shrink it down.
I like that tactic though. Turn the cold outreach into Jason turning that around and then pitching. Hey, why don't you just work here? Yeah, if you ever send me a sales pitch, just understand that I will almost guarantee you I'm going to do the same thing to you. We're going to move on to the final one here for the future. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of tech advances?
I think that that property management will very much be a specialized role, which is managing tenants. What do they call it? The 3 T's, like tenants, toilets, and what's the third one I'm pushing for?
Taxes?
Probably. You do manage that. But my point is that the bifurcation of the management companies into multiple different specialized roles is very much where I think things are headed. And so that, like, for example, leasing. Leasing will be handled by a specialized, team or platform, let's say. Management used to be the all-in-one bundle and did kind of everything okay, in my opinion. And great, very smart people throughout it are really now focused on implementing technology so that they can specialize in what they're best at. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move into the last 3. So I'll ask questions, and Jason, you give your answer, and then Max, you follow behind, and we'll do each 3 of these kind of like a lightning round style. Cool. First one here, what are you reading?
What am I reading? Oh, Max, go ahead.
I'm reading one of the books by Category Pirates. They're a marketing group. It's like a Nicholas Cole and 2 other guys. I'm blanking on their names, but they do really great thought work in terms of marketing and damning demand and thinking of things as different rather than better. So they have a couple different books. I think it's like their marketing toolkit or something like that. But
very cool.
Book by Category Pirates. It's really good.
Looking them up.
Yeah, you like it, Nate. I think you enjoy it too. They're really fun writers and also really great thinkers too. Jason,
I'm going very old school here just because it was one that was handed for me for Father's Day is Good to Great. One of the old school classics. So
there you go.
I think I promised my father I'd pick it up and take a look at it. So that's what's currently on the shelf. We have a couple from book club that are a little more exciting that coming up though in the near future.
Very cool. Number 2 here, who are you learning from?
Oh, really good question. I think I learned most from our team. And I say that because we have a very diverse team when it comes to anything in Proptech. Our engineering team, one in particular originated from Slack. It was one of the founding guys over there, which is pretty exciting, and communication's really important within the leasing world. So communicating with agents, tenants, and approved management companies. So I learned a darn lot from our engineering team. And then the other side of our business in terms of our sales and our account management, that's where I'm learning because I spend most of my time here. That's where I'm learning from day to day. I have a number of podcasts, et cetera, I'd like to listen to in between. And then I'm going to throw a wrench in this a little bit is I have a 2.5 and 5-year-old. And man, I learn a lot from them. How to sell, how to deal with anger, how to get really some real life lessons from my kids, which is really awesome. I can give you the classic, people that I listen to on podcasts, etc. But I think just how much time I spend internally with the team, I learn a ton from them, and then my kids. Yeah.
Cool. I think my answer could go a whole bunch of different ways, but I'll keep it within Skylight for this podcast. We have two younger sales reps that are great. One's a really great writer. So, in terms of, I thought I was a good writer until I started interacting with him some more. So I learned a lot about copywriting and just overall keeping things a little cleaner and tidier from him. Jason's a great sales rep. I don't get to go into the office as much as I want since I'm in a different city than Jason, but he is I guess, I've had several CEOs before. None of them from a sales background, so having Jason from a sales background is great. Powerful pitches, really convincing. So I learned a lot of sales tips from him. So my best thought partner, I'll piggyback off Jason here, is actually my dad. He's super successful. He's retired now, retired early to be a grandpa. But I love talking with him about almost everything business. He has a great sense of humor, kind of sarcastic, but a really practical way about going about business. He ran companies for a while, and he did it very practically and rather unexcitedly too. So he's a lot of fun to talk business with as a younger person, talking to someone who's at the end of their professional career. He's got a lot of good advice and keeps it really calm. So I learned a lot from him in terms of staying calm and thinking clearly about things.
Awesome. Last one here. What inspires you?
That's a lot. It inspires for Jason, why don't you knock it off first? I'll follow you. I think my answer could go way too wide here.
Yeah, I think what inspires me most is I would kind of stems back to what we were just talking about, right? Who inspires me? But I would say that what inspires me most is seeing the really success during, especially the challenging times within startups, is seeing the really successful companies that were recently, let's say, 3 to 5 years ago, were very much where we are now, and it inspires me that these leaders of these teams have been through these ups and downs. Daily, I would say. I think that's the biggest challenge is kind of referencing your runs. You have along that whole run, there are probably hours within that run or miles within that run that are really tough and then really easy, right? So I'm inspired by the opportunity that is out there, and let's just call it thinking about the opportunity of how many residential agents they are. That should be part of what we're doing, and using it as a huge opportunity to really grow their current sales book of business, etc. But also that the opportunity of how many apartments there are to rent. So it inspires me that there are millions of people looking for homes, and that we have a huge impact on that world, and I'm inspired to make us really impactful along the way. So other founders, super inspiring, and just watching other people's journeys, I think.
Yeah.
I had a call with my one of my mentors like maybe a couple months ago. Jason knows them. They used to work together back in the day. But he said, don't have any fear, be of service. So I try to think of that working with Jason here or working with different companies in the past, even with customers too. It takes a lot of fear of the outcome as long as you're being a good service and have some good intentions. So I try to do that when I talk to our sales reps or when we talk to customers. or put information out there. When we write some long form emails to fill in our customers or potential clients on what's going on, just really present the information in a way that's persuasive, but also that's of service too. So that's been a big inspiration for me, I think, the past couple years. It helps them take some pressure off, especially working in like tech startups. You want to see success, you want to see hyper growth. A lot of it's making sure that you keep the ball in the fairway and be of service to other people.
Reminds me of something I go by, which is do the right thing and wait to get fired. But I think yours is put a little bit nicer there. So, fellas, this has been a really good time. Thanks so much for sharing about Skylight, the changes in the industry, especially when it comes to leasing. It's not a topic that I think gets covered quite often, and maybe it gets overlooked as far as its value, in helping renters not just find the right place, but also helping owners realize the full value potential of their buildings. Before we go ahead and close out, for those who want to get in touch with you guys and or learn more about Skylight, where do they go and how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to getskylight.com. That's where you can find out more about us. And then you can get in touch with me at Jason at getskylight.com. I'll get back to you really quickly. I think I'd be excited to talk further with anybody about the leasing world, specifically in both, how we view it here in LA, our experience here in LA. I think we have as much knowledge of anybody from a multitude of different size operators, which is really exciting. And then, that's how you get in touch with us.
Awesome. And I'll put links onto the show episode on technest.io so you guys can get links directly to both Max and Jason's LinkedIn and Twitter accounts, as well as the website here. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see you guys around. If you're headed to Blueprint this year in Vegas, you can catch me at Blueprint. I'm going to be there again on site for all I think it's 2 or 3 days. But until then, we'll see you later.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, Nate.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to TechNest, the Proptech podcast. Find all the links and resources mentioned in this episode on technest.io. You can get future episodes delivered to your ears directly by subscribing to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all other major podcast apps. Follow TechNest on social media to stay up to speed on new developments, resources, and announcements in PropTech. Your support is greatly appreciated. There's 2 ways you can directly support this podcast. Share episodes you find interesting, and then leave a review of the show in the App Store. From Nate and the TechNest team, thanks for listening.